A funnel should always be visualized as an hourglass, right? Once you close the deal, that's when a lot of growth actually starts. Activating, retaining, getting them to expand, upselling, cross-selling, this sort of stuff. And aligning very closely with sales allows us to resolve a lot of things.
Welcome back everybody, my name's Luke, and in this video we're going to talk about the lead generation growth team. Don't miss out the downloadable guide on how to build this team that you can get at the link here. I'm also going to interview Ferdinand Gutson, the Chief Growth Officer of Recruitee, so let's get started. So what is the lead generation team? The lead generation team is a team that you can build if your product has high friction to value, as in it takes a long time for people to realize why they should purchase it. Products with actually really high friction to value benefit from an experienced salesperson to get that potential customer through all of the objections to the point where they're actually ready to purchase. The lead generation team has the growth manager or the product manager, the growth engineer, the growth analyst, the designer, and we have a dedicated salesperson. So let's look at the salesperson. The salesperson has to be consumer centric, loves tools, automation and testing, has to be excellent at objection handling and superb at consultative selling. Ideally is data-driven with a low ego and understands the bigger picture of growth. Now let's hear from Ferdinand Gutson, the Chief Growth Officer of Recruitee, and how he uses lead generation and works really closely with the sales team to help grow Recruitee. Could you tell us a bit about Recruitee and how growth works at Recruitee?
Well, Recruitee is a talent acquisition platform. So we work in the recruitment tech space, which is very interesting for a lot of different reasons, primarily because it's one of the most competitive industries I've ever worked in. We're a bootstrap company fighting against highly funded companies, but at the same time, a lot of these companies aren't really doing anything very innovative. And I was brought in to create a growth department and basically integrate growth into the company. And we've been scaling it since.
In this series, what we're doing is we're kind of discussing how different growth teams can be built. I think for a lead generation teams, having more alignment with the sales team really helps the growth team figure out the challenges for the sales team and a bit more alignment on the leads that you're generating. So can you tell us a bit more about how you kind of pioneered this sales loves growth?
Maybe to give some context, when I first started, I wanted to have your traditional growth team, covers all stages of the funnel, always experimenting, always hacking away. And then as the company started to scale, I started realizing that every industry is different, every product is different. We have a very feature-heavy product that changes things already in terms of product development, UX, this sort of stuff. You can look at these ideal setups, ideal processes, ideal team setups, but you need to then adapt them to your company, to the skills you have, the people you have, the industry you're in. So we very quickly realized that just the traditional blanket growth team doesn't necessarily work. We have 3 sub-teams within growth, which is product marketing, traffic and conversion, and content. And then we have a lot of interdepartmental teams, which are similar to guilds within Spotify and Skyscanner, this kind of guild concept, which is you have a very clear goal and you have people from different departments coming together. It's still coordinated within the growth department, but it's very multidisciplinary, it's interdepartmental. One of these interdepartmental kind of guilds we built was Sales Loves Growth. The idea is that especially in B2B, you need to align with your sales team, because if I want to grow the revenue of the company, it's not enough for me to just look at my conversion rates and to look at my cost per click. A funnel should always be visualized as an hourglass, right? Once you close the deal, that's when a lot of growth actually starts. Activating, retaining, getting them to expand, upselling, cross-selling, this sort of stuff. And aligning very closely with sales allows us to resolve a lot of things. Our sales guys are talking to the potential users all the time. They're talking to recruiters, they're talking to hiring managers. They know what works, they know what convinces them. I'm a growth marketer, I have this growth hacky mindset. So the stuff that I want to put in an ad sometimes is, hyper boost this and, hack this and use your data. And then you realize, oh wait, a lot of recruiters care about other things. They care about the candidate experience. They care about employer branding. And the sales guys really know this because they talk to them all the time. We needed to start treating sales and marketing not so much as 2 separate departments, but as 2 subsections of the same thing. We have the same goals. That's why it's so important to bring in sales.
What type of process do you work with as a growth team?
We have the whole department sit together every 2 weeks for a growth sprint, lasts about 2 hours. We all put ideas in the pipeline, and these ideas can be for experiments or projects. An experiment usually is usually takes 2 weeks, sometimes less, and a project can take up to 3 to 6 months, depending on how big it is. We prioritize these ideas together, and then we put them into our kind of growth board. We use Asana for that. And then when an experiment is successful, it gets scaled into a project. Sometimes it's the other way around. We would take a big project, we'd outline the core assumptions, and then we'd build experiments around these assumptions. Once the assumptions would be validated, we would then integrate them into the project.
What do you try to do to validate the experiments?
We usually start with a general goal, which is very often going to be lead generation, either in the volume side, as in generating more traffic, more attention and awareness, or in the conversion side. Whoever owns the idea or suggests the idea has to then explain it in detail and set a clear expectation. So we discuss it, we prioritize it. The ideas that get prioritized, make it into the next stage, which is the approved and planning stage of the process. And then under what circumstances is this a success? What is the minimum ROI we expect? What is the minimum result? We have a 2-month sales cycle, so we can't wait 2 months to see whether the leads generated from this experiment were actually leads that closed at the end. But we do have early indicators. We do know if there are certain indications of interest and this sort of stuff. So we try to set kind of minimum standards for successful experiments, and if they reach those standards, then we scale it.
Thanks, Freddie. The answers you've given are really interesting, and it's always nice talking to you about growth. If you'd like to ask more questions of Freddie, all you have to do it is in the comments. So thanks very much for listening, and we'll see you next time.